Before I start, there's a couple of requests, if I can humbly ask, because I have a disability. I can only be as what's the term I'm after? I can only be as in focus as the crowd is with me. So please, can I humbly ask, if you have your phone, please switch it off. Don't be too distracted with who's coming in and who's coming out. Wallahi, I have flown 24 hours exactly. We left the plane in Sydney 10:15 p.m. and I landed in Oslo, Norway at 10:15 p.m. Sydney time. So flying for 24 hours. So please, if I can humbly ask, inshallah ta'ala, that you give me your undivided attention. And another general rule that is good for all the believers is, whenever you come to a talk or you come to a lesson, it is very important that when you sit in that lesson, that you think and that you believe that the whole talk, the whole speech is directed to you completely. Many of us, we come to a lecture or we come to a talk or to the Jum'ah, to the Friday khutbah, you hear the talk and you think, man, mashallah, I wish my uncle was here, he needed to hear these words. Or you know what, I wish my brother was here, or I wish my sister was here, he spoke about everything that they do wrong. I wish they were here so that they could hear these words. If these are thoughts that cross your mind, then I beg you to have fear of Allah, because this is a sign of a corrupted heart. So inshallah ta'ala, as we sit and we listen, we need to understand that everything is being said, you need to apply it to yourself completely. My brothers and sisters, the title is Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't need you, you need Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many of us, my brothers and sisters, in truth, whether you're, and I hate using the term, religious or not religious, there has become a very disgusting attitude with both parties. And there has become this arrogance in our hearts when dealing with Allah Azza wa Jal. And wallahi, today I'm here to tell you that no one is free from what I'm talking about. There are those who are, and again I hate using the term religious, because who defines who is and who isn't religious? Today we've become so shallow in our understanding that the bead makes you religious, or that the hijab makes you religious. Such a shallow understanding of our deen. But be it as it may, today you have those that are supposedly religious, active on deen. He's supposed to be a da'i. Many of us, alhamdulillah, we've been praying for 10, 15 years on deen, mashallah. People look at you as an active person. And deep down in our hearts, in places we don't talk about, in our hearts we feel that Allah Azza wa Jal, He owes me a favor, that Allah owes me something, that hey, look at me, I've been praying for 10 years. All these people doing haram, looking down at the people around you, alhamdulillah, I don't do what they do. I pray, I fast, I read Quran, I do what I'm supposed to. So therefore, though we don't say it on our tongues, but wallahi, in the depths of our hearts, in places we don't talk about, in your heart you feel like, I'm better than these people and Allah owes me something. And then there's the other side of the fence. The brother and the sister who don't pray, don't fast, they don't have time for deen. Don't come to me with your fairy tales about the Prophet of Allah, and don't come and tell me that what I'm doing is haram and halal. Let me do as I please, Wallahi, my brothers and sisters, today I'm here to speak about both of us. My brothers and sisters, we need to understand something with depth. That Allah Azza wa Jal, the King, the Master, doesn't need anyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need your salah. Allah doesn't need your fasting. Allah doesn't need your tasbih. Allah doesn't need your dhikr. Allah doesn't need your money. Allah doesn't need the $10 or whatever currency you use as you leave. Brother walks into the masjid, prays his Jum'ah, and as he leaves, he leaves a couple of dollars in the box. He feels like Allah owes him something. Well, I got news for you, man. Allah doesn't owe you anything. We are in debt to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. When did the time come where you and I started thinking that Allah owes us anything? The Prophet of Allah sitting with Sahaba in the authentic hadith. And please, I don't want you to just listen to the hadith because I'm sure you've heard it. But I want you to live the hadith. I want you to imagine you're there. I want you to imagine that there's no one in this room. The Prophet of Allah is speaking and I'm there in the gathering and I'm hearing these words. Because we feel that, look, Allah needs me. Now we've got gangsters on the street, mashallah. Brother, he puts a couple of tattoos on him and now I need to respect him. I need to fear him because he's something. Or maybe you drive a nice pretty BMW. This attitude towards Allah. Well, my brothers, I have news. Allah doesn't need anyone. The Prophet of Allah in the authentic hadith sitting with the Sahaba, Allahu A'lam, maybe in a gathering like this. But sitting with Sahaba, sitting with the greatest ummah that ever walked the earth. Not my opinion, not the opinion of the ulama and the mashayikh. Allah Azza wa Jal in Quran says, I am pleased with them and they are pleased with me. The Prophet of Allah speaking to these people, what does he say? He says, I see what you don't see and I hear what you don't hear. He says, أَطَّتِ السَّمَاءُ وَحُكَّ لَهَا أَن طَئِطْ. The Prophet of Allah speaking to Sahaba. He says, I see what you don't and I hear what you don't. He says, verily the heavens have squeaked and they have every right to squeak. What's he talking about, sallallahu alayhi wasallam? He says the seven heavens have squeaked. The seven heavens, my brothers and my sisters. Everything you see in this world, scientists tell us now today that we can only see a keyhole. We can only see a minor percentage of what's out there. The sun is supposed to be one of the smallest stars in our galaxy. And it's millions of times bigger than the earth. In fact, I heard one scholar say, he says, if we were given, and please give me attention. He says, if we were given 1 second to name every star in our galaxy, and our galaxy is one of millions. He says, if we were given 1 second to name every star in our galaxy, you ready for this? He says, it will take 300 trillion years and you still would not name every star in our galaxy. And all this is samawat al-ula. And the Prophet of Allah in another hadith, he says, do you know the distance between the first heaven and the second? He says it's a distance of 500 years. The Prophet of Allah is saying the seven heavens have squeaked and they have every right to squeak. Why, O Prophet of Allah? He says, ما في موضع أربع أصابع